You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts, but there's only one where the horns are always down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down Podcast.
What's up, everyone? Chris Griffin here with another episode of the Horns Down Podcast. Shout out to everybody that is pulling up today. Got my guy, Chris Mason, with me, and we also have Jason, who's about to pop on screen here in a second. Jason from Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with Coach. So, we're going to talk about the Sooners lost last night. Yes, people, the Sooners did lose last night, their first game of the season that they did lose. We're going to talk about everything, basically just recapping the game and going forward. But I do preface this. This is not necessarily going to be a moan and groan podcast, hey, everything's over. The season is done. The 12-game playoff changes everything, people. We're not out of the race yet. We still got a lot of season left and a lot of games. And next week is a great chance to have a bounce back game. So theme of this show is always, as always, is focused on the solution, not the problem. That's something I used to tell my clients when I was in private practice, doing a lot of litigation. Always focus on the solution, not the problem. So we're going to try to keep that theme, but we will be realistic about what's going on. Texas fans, as you come in here and as you keep talking, as you like to do with your parading around Steven and Nick on Twitter, I will say this. There was a decade and more of silence, and I can't wait for you guys to go back to that. But regardless, come on in, pile in. It's whatever. Y'all know it's all love. We're going to have some laughs, and we're going to talk some noise. But definitely.
Can we trade schedules?
Yeah. Can we trade schedules? Hey, good point. Good point.
Just saying, if you're the ultimate team that we keep hearing about, can we trade schedules real quick?
Yeah.
I mean, just saying, you got a gift wrapped schedule from the SEC office, and apparently,
we pissed somebody off.
We did something to piss somebody off, us in Florida, and
I'll say that people,
that's big talk until you we'll see
down the line. But guys, go ahead, like, subscribe, do all those different things to the podcast. Got to bring Jason in here now. Jason is driving, so Jason, cut out some of your noise, man. You got in the background.
Do you have it in the background, really?
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
No, that sounds good.
Okay.
A little bit. All right, yeah, that's better now. Okay, so we got Jason. Jason, keep your eyes on the road, obviously. But shout out to Jason for definitely hooking us up, people. You see the new background, you see some of the new digs and stuff like that around here. Going to screw some things up, but again, it's the Horns Down Podcast. Let's go ahead and get into it. Jason, I'm gonna mute your mic for a second. So, Mr. Mason, I'll let you go first. Obviously, Jackson Arnold is the topic of discussion right now. Not necessarily Michael Hawkins. I think a lot of people are calling for him to be QB1, this and that. But, coming into the season, I did plenty of videos about Jackson Arnold. I did one myself on my channel, 5 reasons why he will be successful in his first year as a starter in the SEC. That has not materialized. I'll be the first one to say I'm wrong. Right now, we've only seen one game from him in the SEC, which was last night, but we've seen about 4 games now, or 5 games, however you want to spin it, in which he has been the clear starter, the numero uno quarterback, and things have not went well. We will get to the offensive line. We have 2 guys here that can talk about the offensive line and their woes or their improvement from game to game, but I really want to focus, fellas, on Jackson Arnold right now. What's going on with Jackson, and where do we go from there?
Well, it's baffling, I think, from a certain standpoint. I'm a recruiting guy. He was a 5-star. That was a universal opinion. He won the Elite 11 competition. He went to back-to-back playoffs in Texas high school football at the highest level, playing the best teams, and played, great football for 2 seasons. So there's like no real warning sign that we were heading to this. The Arizona game, he obviously made some mistakes, but he was also slinging the ball around, threw for nearly 350 yards. So some crisis of confidence has hit him, and let's just call it what it is. If he plays decent ball security quarterbacking in the first half of the game yesterday, it's 12-9 at halftime. And OU is basically a possession away, basically down a possession. So you had to bench him. The interception was awful. The lateral thing was maybe one of the worst passes I've seen since the Landry Jones whiff pass that was returned for a touchdown in Bedlam. Was it 2011? I think it was 2011. Bedlam 2011, kind of, trying to block that whole game out of my mind. And then the fumble in the red zone was also just a terrible, terrible play. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. The offense, had a spark with Michael Hawkins. I don't see how. At this point, I'm second guessing not putting Michael Hawkins in during the Houston game. Texas fans can enjoy this. We'll think back to your Case McCoy quarterback days, the days of Garrett Gilbert, the days of the guys, all those quarterbacks back in the day. So, Casey Thompson was your quarterback as well. So, you're not that far away. It's very easy to get bad at quarterback. That's all I'm saying. You can go from good to bad at quarterback in the college game very, very quickly. Look at Clemson, flagship quarterback program, and then DJU, and then they've had two uneven seasons from Klubnik, although he had a better game yesterday, obviously. I'm not sure how much of that is NC State, how much of that is Clemson, but we'll see. But it's just I don't understand how he's regressed this. We heard, Gabe Eichard was in spring. I think it was one of the spring reviews. He said that, that Hawkins looked great. He looked like the best quarterback on the field. I think he made some comment like that, and everyone ran with it. So, Chris, at this point, the only thing I can guess is that Hawkins has pushed Arnold so much and has flashed so much in practice that, and Arnold's never been in a situation like that he's just lost his confidence. He's lost his mojo, his swagger, whatever cliche term you want to use. And it's crippled his decision making, and OU has to make a change. I don't know, with the other liabilities we have on offense. If we had a Michigan offensive line and we could just run the ball, or if we had our veteran wide receivers and all he had to do was get the ball in their hands, then you could just take a lot of that out and just make him a game manager. But we're not in that. Our O-line is a cohesive disaster, and we're down our 4 top wide receivers. And our young wide receivers didn't get any playing time last year. Petaway never played last year, really. And then we're talking, other than Burks, we're talking freshmen everywhere else. And other than guys like J.J. Hester, who, he can't really, there's a reason why he's like our 16 flanker, and it just shows. So you got to get Kearney and you got to get Raggins and Petaway onto the field. I don't think you're going to get anything from Nick Anderson this year. If he can only play a play, then I don't know, man. And Andrew Anthony is obviously still rehabbing. Is probably Texas game away from being maybe where he can contribute 80%, and maybe he's just not going to be full go this entire season. So with all those liabilities and Jackson being a bigger liability with his indecision, lack of playmaking, and turnovers, you've got to go somewhere else. I mean, I think you've got to go Hawkins and then Casey Thompson. That's the way I view what's moving forward. I mean, the offensive line's a mess. It's not playing well. You've got new pieces. It hasn't had a chance during our preseason exhibition. We never had the 5 guys play an entire game in the exhibition. So any of the chance to get them any kind of cohesion and rhythm during the easier part of our schedule's gone. Tennis, the O-line was bad. Tennessee was a big reason why the O-line was bad as well. But, moving forward, I think you've got to go with Hawkins. He's faster. He's making decisions quicker. I think we saw a glimpse of that in the couple of drives of the Tennessee game. But
let me jump in here real quick and let's see, Jason, what are your thoughts about Jackson Arnold as well?
Yeah, I hope this is better now without a bunch of background noise. But
yeah, this is better.
Okay, yeah. I think he lost confidence a while back. I think last night after, you had that the encroachment on the defense that probably should have been a touchdown, but for whatever reason, they decided to stop the play. But then I think Coach Venables talked about it in the post game that then he just did a bunch of things that's not what you expect out of him. You could tell that he was clearly grasping for what it was time for him to do. I think that the offensive line is a work in progress, as Chris was saying. There's no two ways around it. But you can't make ridiculous decisions like throwing a lateral pass there in that situation at the end of the half and fumbling down there. we're talking about back-to-back turnovers that we turned it right back to him. And you just can't have it. Whatever the reason is, I don't really necessarily blame it all on J.A. I don't think it's all his fault. But I do know that once you got Michael Hawkins in the game, then you did have a spark. You did see confidence there, even though the pocket remained muddled. It remained a lot of people chasing him around in the backfield. He would either run out of bounds, or he's throwing out of bounds, or he's making a play. So that, I know right before the half, whenever it was like, well, he ran it out of bounds, and there were some people in the stands that were groaning about that. It was like, oh, that's much better. And I was like, that is much better. We're going to get to half now. We're going to get to the half now. You get to, and he didn't try to throw the ball away. He didn't look like he was worried. I think that once this decision was made, it sealed the fate of Jackson Arnold. I think it was over with. I think it was probably over with already, but no matter what, when you put him in, you take out a 5-star that you've anointed the starter, you've anointed the guy moving forward, and you have to pull him out for play. It's very similar to what we saw in the Red River game, albeit different coaching staff, all that, but you just lost that kid. Now, unless there's a catastrophic thing down the line somewhere where he has to play in an emergency, I think Chris was right. I think it's Hawkins, and I think it's Casey after that. I feel like that's probably where you're headed at this time. That sucks. It sucks for Jackson. I wish that I wish that they were in a better position to kind of take care of him. I would ask you guys, do you feel like this is something Coach Ricks and I talked about last night? Do you feel like this is something where instead of Seth really trying to either do his own thing or run Levy's offense, that he wanted to marry two different styles together, and it kind of just kind of screwed that up for Jackson?
I'll jump in on this right here. I think there's, okay, as my friend Ty Hayes would loves to say, two truths can exist at the same time. So within what you said, I think there are two truths that are coming out of that. I think that he is trying to marry some of those concepts at time with what Levy has done, because let's be real, J.A. is a Levy guy, okay? He's a Levy guy, right? And so I think at times it limits our offense because he has to run those similar concepts or those concepts simply because that's what Jackson is most comfortable with right now. But at the same time, I still see a lot of Levy's characteristics wanting to push the ball down the field and wanting to do different things outside of the Levy system. I think you're seeing jet sweeps, different things like that, just to get the ball out of Jackson's hands to move the chains. Now, with a guy like Hawkins, you didn't see that last night necessarily, simply because you could run offense. Seeing Jaquez Petaway actually being involved in the offense was different to me. But I think that's definitely something that you have to take into account. So I think you're hitting on something there. Jumping to the comments I've seen up here, and guys, I'm going to jump into the comments an awful lot. So if you got something good to say, definitely put it in there. Sooners Freak has pointed out a couple of things. He says, number one fault, quarterback. Coach fault. And then he said 2, offensive line. Then he said 3, Seth Luttrell's play calling. And I'm just going to say this right here. We'll get into the offensive line here in a second. I don't think the offensive line was your issue. The offensive line does not cause you to fumble the ball and throw backwards passes. And the thing is that
or that stupid interception either.
If you pitch the ball,
was criminal.
Yeah, if you pitch the ball to Barnes, that's a touchdown. He's walking in. If you connect with Raggins, there's a blocker out there in front of him with a defender that's still about 5 to 10 yards away. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. Sooners Freak also says, before that he said, what we seen with Hawkins last night was all Hawkins' decision, had nothing to do with Seth Luttrell dumb play calling. I tend to disagree just a little bit, but I thought this was a good point, Sooners Freak. Right there. You also had another point in here where you said that I think you said that you thought that the QB coach failed Jackson Arnold. And that's something that I would maybe toss to the panel and see, what do you guys think about that? Right? Or is this more of a indictment on the coaching staff than it is JA or what? Because I feel like maybe at least two, and there may be more, but there's 2 out of the 4 games that they've played this year where I can legit say Levy called maybe a couple of he called too many quarterback runs, but outside of that, I didn't necessarily have an issue with the play calling because characteristically that's what he likes to do. But I just seen poor execution.
Yeah, but Chris,
part of
I think that what they're talking about, I think what they got to be talking about is like when and where. What are you doing and why? And like to me, when you're running on 3rd and 7.
Yeah.
Or it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, and you're running the football to get it to 4th and 4 or 4th and 3 or whatever, and then you punt. That's not really a Luttrell problem. That's a Coach Venables problem, if you ask me, because that means that he's not trusting in what they're doing. Which I think that's a different conversation. But I don't like the idea of some of these play calls and what they're doing. And what I was getting at with the trying to marry 2 concepts together was that, I understood doing that for the Arizona game because you still, that's all he knew. He just knew that. At this point, I think you either stick with Levy's deal or you go to your own and you just move on. You don't have to do everything the same way. And you had enough time to install a new offense. That there's going to be some concepts that are similar anyway, but do it your way. Because I don't think that there's any rhyme or reason to a lot of his play calling, and I hate their substitution stuff. So I definitely think there's some issues within the coaching staff going on here, and I think it goes all the way to the top. But I would tell you that when it comes to JA, I don't know that if it was just it wasn't handled properly, or maybe he was paying too much attention to social media, or whatever was going on. but he's in his own head. That's all there is to it. He was in his own head. You're not seeing, and it was easy to tell last night.
He wasn't seeing the field. He wasn't seeing the field. This
and he wanted to get the ball out, but he didn't know what to do.
This guy's wide open. I think a big part of the problem is this marrying of the two schemes. Seth, if he wants to save his freaking job, needs to on Monday say, we're done with the Levy RPO. We are running Leach air raid. I got midget wide receivers left and right. We're gonna spread people out, go in space. I got running back talent. Bill knows how to keep coach and block it. Hawkins ran it in high school. Ditch the Levy RPO and do the Leach and run the freaking Leach air raid.
Yeah.
Or go. I mean, if you want to talk, I'm grasping at solutions. Maybe Tulsa can let Kevin Wilson go on Monday, and we can drop some cash and bring Kevin Wilson back and make him OC. I mean, really, I'm sorry.
And that's what we thought. That's what we thought that we were getting.
It's not Kevin Wilson, anything resembling what Kevin Wilson
that's
was doing.
That's what we thought we were getting with Latrell, simply because Latrell comes from that tree. Those types of play callers, opposed to this Levy system. But I will say this though. The game plan transition to something totally different. You did not see a lot of RPO when Hawkins was in there, because Hawkins can make those plays regardless of if the pocket is dirty or whatever.
I gotta go back and watch Frisco Emerson film. I watched some of it last year because obviously Hawkins had a really good playoff run and had a really good senior year at Frisco Emerson. And Hawkins has been through more adversity just in terms of dealing with stuff. The racist crap he had to deal with in Allen, having a really bad junior year at Allen, leaving Allen, and the racist crap he had to put up with there. His dad obviously lives, breathes, chews, eats, pushing through adversity, right? Uh-huh. So, because if you know anything about Michael Hawkins Sr., you know that guy has pushed through some damn adversity. So his kid obviously worked his ass off to get better last year. Went to every camp, every throwing session. He did everything to get better, and he had a fantastic senior year. Got no credit for it in the recruiting rankings. Railed about that on my podcast. Shout out to the Sooners 360 recruiting podcast. If you don't want any rehashes of sorry, I always said the Ohio State game. It reminded me of the 2016 Ohio State for some reason. Of the Tennessee game, I'll be throwing down a recruiting only podcast in a couple of days. You hear some recruiting stuff, but that's what I should do. Is Latrell should say, I'm done with the RPO stuff. Hawkins doesn't need it. We're going to run the air raid. I got midget fast wide receivers everywhere. I'm going to spread you out, cover those guys. If you can't cover them, I'm going to have Hawkins running, and I'm going to hit you with a power back. And Bill, you eat, live, and breathe coaching this O-line, this scheme. Get your 5 guys every week getting better and better at it. And then you've got guys like Reagans, Petaway, Thompson, and Burks are old midget air raid guys, right?
Dude, and Petaway is... Why is it taking so long to find out what Jacquez Petaway is?
He's hurt. He was hurt.
I mean, okay, he was hurt a little bit. Okay.
He didn't play last year because we were loaded at wide receiver.
I get that part, but I'm saying like this year coming in, there's been so much.
Yeah, he was hurt. He was hurt in camp. He was part of the MASH unit in camp.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that last night you found out though that you could rely on him a little bit. I think you can rely on Reagans. I think the guy's just a pound for pound little freak athlete. But I agree with you. I think that the RPO system has, in trying to marry these two things together, I just don't think that it's within Seth Latrell's wheelhouse to be able to do it. And now you don't have to do it because you're not Correct. And now you don't have to do it because that's not what Michael Hawkins is anyway. You don't have to try to cater to a guy that doesn't exactly fit and you didn't recruit him. And so it was, you know what I mean? It's more a situation where, to me, that we know that Hawkins can probably still run the RPO. I just don't think that it's really working with what they're doing. And to me, I want a situation where you know that he's not going to he doesn't have to be in the pocket first off to make this thing work. And so he can run around and when the play completely breaks down, he can still hurt you. I think that as much as Jackson is Jackson is definitely mobile. I mean, he was a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, but it's not the same thing as what you have with, you know, a 4.4, high 4.3 guy like Michael Hawkins, who can, you know, you think about Kyler, he works with Kyler's dad and they got the same, you know, kind of traits. Get out of there and he can beat secondary guys in a speed race. You know what I mean? So I think you just have different things. It's not kind of to finish what I was going to say about Jackson Arnold. I don't think it's really J.A.'s fault. I think it is what it is that it happened that way. I hate it for him. But I also know that in this day and time in college football, to expect for guys for it to just work out, it's not really the right thing because almost nobody is where they started, you know, by year 3, year 4.
Now, talking to Ty, I talked to Ty earlier this week, and we were talking about Michigan, and he brought this up for a bunch of quarterbacks that are coming out of high school right now. He said, hey, everybody is dealing with it. He said, Nico has had the problem. Jackson definitely has the problem. He said, hell, Ty Simpson still has the problem. He says the problem, I asked him, I said, hey, why isn't the 5-star kid that they just got up there in Michigan, a year ago or so, why isn't he starting? He said, because a lot of these quarterbacks, and he said, that's my biggest issue with Jackson Arnold. They're one-read quarterbacks. They're not in systems anymore where they're being taught how to read defenses, how to actually see the field. It's a one-read system. He said that's hurting a lot of quarterbacks. Now, a lot of people have said that, and I've seen in the comments a bunch of times a lot of OU fans have said they've had issues with Jackson simply because of the offense he comes from. He thinks that he can still do a lot of high school-esque things that you just can't do at this level. Look, at the end of the day, people, I'll say this right here because I don't want to keep piling on the kid. I hope things work out. It just doesn't seem like there's an avenue for it to work out here right now. And I hate to say that 4 games into the season, but it's just clear that he's not the answer because as we've seen, and even if you want to dip back into the Lincoln years, probably the biggest problem with Rattler at OU was the fact that he was not mobile to help that offensive line that just simply was not – it wasn't great. Offensive line was good, and you saw them go out there and do things that you never seen them before. Why? Because they had Caleb, right, who can do the actual athletic things and all the rest of this stuff. Caleb didn't have command of the offense per se like Rattler did, being in year 3 of that system. But the fact of the matter is that we all know for Lincoln to really go above and beyond, he needs an athletic quarterback or a quarterback that can improvise. Jackson was supposed to be this guy here, and it just hasn't worked. So that kind of begs you to ask, would things be different if Levy was here? But regardless, all I would say is this right here, is that we can talk, and we're going to segue right into the O-line now. But my issue is this right here. You can't put the blame on the on play calling. You can't put the blame on the O-line necessarily whenever you're out there, the defense is playing lights out, and then all of a sudden you fumble.
Absolutely.
You're doing it. Execution has to be a part of this, and it has to be a big part of this. If you don't see what you like, throw the ball away. Hell, take a sack or whatever you got to do. I'd rather you do that opposed to throwing the ball away, especially when we're in plus territory. There are different points in the game last night. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. Give me Jackson against Arizona. That at least if he's like my uncle said, give me that Jackson. At least
veteran wide receiver core in that game, right?
But he's throwing
it's a big difference.
They throw touchdowns too.
It's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Farouk, you have Nick Anderson, you have Jaden Gibson, and you had Drake Stoops, right? I mean, it made a huge difference, and obviously the offensive line was not a great offensive line that day. We were piecing things together, but. So to me, the O-line, obviously, there are going to be a lot of people calling for Bill's head over this O-line this season, right? But just strictly speaking, execution and stats-wise, I understand that, and you're right. Just know the recruiting ramifications of doing that, right? If you want to do that, just know you're going to lose. You're going to lose the O-line class, right? Just know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine if that's what you want to do, then do it, right? Just know that you're not keeping Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foji if you let Bill go.
No, they're not going to let Bill go. I think that
they're not, and they better not.
Drastic talk. Yeah.
And the 06 and 26 and 27 O-line, OU's making way too much progress. But I understand the rationale. The O-line problems are 2 years old, right? Undersigning in 22, 23. And then the injury issues have just killed the ability that Bill made some bad evals on the transfer market, right? Killed him there. They probably could have masked that if we wouldn't be seeing Tarquin if Jake Taylor was healthy, right? So you wouldn't see that. And the center nonsense is just it's unbelievable that you're down to your fifth string center, basically. Losing Hatchett to a bicep injury. So the fact you haven't had your starting five on the O-line is bad. I mean, the O-line's executing badly. They're not doing a great job coaching them. Okay. All right. You beat Michigan in the big house by 18 points. We get it. You have a senior laden team with a 3-year veteran quarterback. Okay,
you still haven't played a team with a pulse, for God's sakes. Come on.
Yeah, but if you played well and you have an easy schedule and you get and you get Mississippi State. It's not really balanced out there. But again, the offensive line, it is what it is. If you can keep the 5 guys that started that game in Tennessee playing week over week over week, you'll get incremental offensive line improvement. Everyone's like, oh, the O-line's so bad. I'm like, 09 and 09 was this bad, and 05 was this bad. Guys, I've seen O-line, 01. The 01 O-line was awful. Yeah. I've seen O-lines this bad. If Bill is anything as everybody says he is, if now they've got a starting 5, just stick with them, start them week over week. You can sub in Taylor for Tarquin as soon as Taylor's ready, which probably is Texas because he just got beat up. And then the O-line week over week, again, simplify. Bill and Seth just need to go. Screw the Levy stuff. Toss it all out.
Yeah.
Let's get our dust off the Leach playbooks, and let's just do the air raid, and just make the air raid. We got a fast.
There's a lot simpler blocking assignments in that air raid too.
Yep, go to air raid. We got good running backs. We've got speedy wide receivers, and we got a quarterback who can sling the ball over the place and can make plays with his feet. And we have a defense that's the best that we've had in OU in like 15 years. Let's just play. Let's just play where we are. I mean, there are 2 mistakes, one by Woody Washington and Bowman, away from damn near pitching something like, Tennessee should have only had about, 10 points. I mean, I think that's the O-line. The O-line, there's also no magic O-line fix. There's no magic O-line things you play. You get EPL and Howland in as much as you can this year, so that you have as much depth and talent on the O-line for 25. But 24, this is what you do. That's all those guys other than Hickman will return. So it's you can get better.
Let's not get crazy here and act like you have to. Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with you. I think that it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility that this offensive line gels together. We've seen it before where it takes a couple of games, but they get gelled together over, a couple of games. Let's not forget that Tennessee, as good as they were coming in and everybody was talking about their offense, that is an elite defensive line, especially that Tennessee had. It wasn't because of the offensive line that Jackson was trashy last night. I'm sorry, that's not what it was. He made ridiculous decisions in situations where they gave him an opportunity to get in and score. I mean, when you're down there by the freaking goal line and you get a turnover and you turn the ball over right away instead of scoring, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. And the interception, no way that ball should have ever been thrown. And he doesn't throw it in the last couple of weeks.
Burks
why would
down
you,
the middle of the field is wide freaking open.
I know. Wide open. And that's what I'm saying. That had jack shit to do with the offensive line, guys. It had nothing to do with the offensive line. That was bad decision making, and that's all there is to it. The truth is, even if you did have some it wasn't dominant offensive line play or whatever you want to call it. There was times that they weren't great, but it's not. This isn't. You weren't going up against a JV defensive line either. We're talking about one of the better, if not the best, defensive lines in the country, and they had opportunities still. The bottom line is you have to believe and trust in the fact that Bill Bedenbaugh continues to pump out NFL caliber guys, and they have had a bunch of injuries. That's all this is. All this is. And we are looking to, I was just saying in my Discord, guys, we're grasping at every little straw we can to figure out why it is that we didn't win this game. It's in the end, instead of looking at, you know what, we learned some things last night. We learned some things that we weren't willing to admit before, and now we know where we have to head, and we have some opportunities to continue to push and make progress this season.
No,
it's not over.
And that's real. And people, one game. We're 3-1 right now. Maybe not the most perfected 3-1 that you've seen, the best 3-1 team that you've seen. But hey, I still think there's a lot of potential in this season, and there's still a lot of games left, guys. We got 8 games left, and I think we can make some things happen. But
still do everything you want to do, man.
As Frightening has put in the chat plenty of times, biggest issue for OU is injuries. We already know that. But here's what I'll say, okay? For everybody that's saying that the O-line sucks and this and that, you can say that. And Jason, I'll say this: the way that you can describe this O-line is just workmanlike, right? They're serviceable. They're pale hat guys. They're not the guys that are showing up that are the bosses on the yard. They're the guys showing up to actually try to get the work done, right? And that's all you can ask for. But people, when the ball is snapped, right? When the ball is snapped, and regardless of what plays or whatever the case may be, we coming into this year, I think people are forgetting coming into this year, our hope as a fandom was that, hey, Jackson Arnold will not be a turnover machine. He's turned the ball over plus times in multiple games this season already. And this is the thing. Once that ball snaps, execution has to be there. Throw it away. He did it in the spring game. It seemed like that was the trend, and it wasn't a turnover problem, but it seems like that continues to happen. So, fact of the matter is that, like, hey, I don't think that the O-line is healthy. I don't think the O-line has played great, but they have given you chances to go out there and do things that you want to do, and you just have not executed, and that's a problem. Whether that be the coaches or whether that be the player. Okay. One of my uncles would always say, hey, if you could do it in practice, just remember, you also got to do it when the popcorn smell is in the stadium, people. You got to be able to do it out there too. And that's been a big issue. I think that wide receiver wise, skill wise, we have guys out there. You saw that we have momentum. The defense played lights out, people. But the issue is that come on, man. It just, I don't know. But moving the conversation towards this week, and we're just basing it off of offense. We'll talk about defense here in a second, but just basing it off of offense, does Michael Hawkins give us our best chance to go into Auburn and beat them?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, then
easily yes. Best, that's a simple answer. No two ways around it.
And your second best option is Casey Thompson. You cannot give points away to Auburn on the road. They are a bad offense. Our defense has a possibility of shutting them out. They have no quarterbacks. Their quarterbacks. I mean, Hugh Freeze says, I just have to find a quarterback who won't throw the ball to the other team. You know, their offense is in as worse shape as ours is, basically. And their defense isn't as good as ours. It's just not. So we have a clear advantage.
No way.
We have a clear advantage over Auburn. We need a quarterback that will make plays when they are there, throw the ball away when it's not, get us some first downs with his feet, move the chains, and when the defense creates opportunities for points, takes them. We don't need 48 points a game to win. 21 points will beat Auburn with our defense. Right. If we don't give the ball away, if we're not giving Auburn points, 21 points will beat Auburn. Our defense will hold Auburn to 10 points because they're not that good.
They're not that good. Speaking of defense, I see some people in here. I want to go to this real quick. Give me a second. Let me share the screen real quick. I want to share this with you.
Please do allow me to.
So, these guys, okay? These jokers here. Shout out to my guys that are doing their Bleacher Report show and doing and they are on the SEC Connect with me, obviously. So shout out to these guys, okay? But Nick says, told you guys on our whatever that OU's pass defense was going to contribute to losing this game. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. That was probably a dumb.
I don't either.
Take. Look. I love Nick, but I will say this. Nick pays attention to, he will look up a box score and then kill you the next day by talking about the stats opposed to what we all are happening on the field. Then somebody else down here, I don't know who this is, hyper-sparing Oklahoma fans' feelings, basically saying that they didn't want to run up.
That's Brandon Walker.
That's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard.
That guy's an ass clown.
So basically, I've seen and hear about a Tennessee fan, O. Schmidt, and other people in here talking that are not necessarily of this fandom, talking about the defense, and they're like, no, we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't do these things. And what I'll say this is about to the people who are saying we have holes in our secondary. We had one play last night, honestly, that was pretty egregious, but it was the fact that Billy got caught watching in the backfield, and that was it. He was just playing a little.
Hands were in the cookie jar. His hands were in the cookie jar instead of where his eyes were supposed to be. We talked about that before. That's all that was. Mm-hmm. Billy Bowman is one of those great players in the secondary, but he does things where what makes him really good, he's a ball hawk, but he also is not afraid to go down there and stick his head in there and make a play in the run game, right? In this game, they didn't need him to do that, and he made a mistake. He'll tell you that. There's no two ways around it. If you think that this secondary is bad, then you're crazy. I love it when people do stuff like that. You can look at a box score. You look at one play they get away with. Literally, the guy had 200 passing yards, 200, and you got to
he was averaging 350.
Essentially, it was on most of that was on two plays. Two total plays was those.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying the biggest bulk of that 200 yards was on those two plays. So they made a mistake. It's not a situation where the other part of that too was that touchdown that he gave up on that. How long were they on the field in the first half? They were on the damn field for 18, almost 19 full minutes to 11 minutes. And at some point, we do realize that out of what I think they had 15 possessions, they had 9 3-and-outs last night, 9 of them. So we're talking about a situation where they're covering up on their edges. They like to throw it out to the outside and let the wide receiver make a move and go. That shit didn't work.
Yep.
None of it was working. We don't have a problem in the secondary or on the defense at all. We held them to 2.9 yards per rush and did it, and they got 200 passing yards. We win that game with a competent offense. Period.
Now I will say, I can't make any excuse. Woody can't play cheetah. Woody has to.
You gotta split that. But with Dolby being hurt, which is a killer.
Yeah.
You got to split that time between Samo and Eli Bowen.
Yep.
And by the end of the year, Eli Bowen is going to be a killer. Is going to be a killer cheetah for you with Samo intermingled in there.
Would you put Peyton back there, or would you, down there at cheetah, or would you go Eli?
I'd go Eli because I think your safety rotation.
Because you need it more.
Yeah, because your rotation of Peyton, Spears, and Bowman's working so well. I think you could definitely think about it, but Eli's played really well. He gives you a lot of what Samo is going to be. Bigger teams, Samo is what you need. And then when teams spread us out a little bit more, like Ole Miss, you need Eli. So I'd go Eli Bowen. That's his future position, right? With all the big cornerbacks we got coming in and all the guys we got playing around, safety room is loaded. I would play Eli at Eli's your small cheetah and Samo's your big cheetah and roll with that. I mean, I think that gets you a lot of potential down the road, and that's what you should do. I mean, Woody needs to be a backup corner. He's a liability at safe at cheetah. He just can't play the position.
He can't play. I think that's something that they really have to look.
I mean, they have to make that hard decision there, and I think it's you go with Eli Bowen and Samo. Auburn's probably going to be a lot of Samo because they're
nickel type cornerback type of deal for Woody because of the fact that he's just not that long rangy big hitter type of corner that they like to have, and then he's certainly not a cheetah. No, he doesn't belong there.
He's miscast, but it's they were trying to get him that they were trying to get Woody a better NFL potential by playing with a bunch of different spots. They got to stop that, and they got to just make him a backup corner and put some of the other guys there. Even Jaden Hardy, look at him at cheetah. I think maybe a little bit. He played well. I think that's what you're going to do defensively. But I mean, the front four played their asses off. You better beat Auburn. And that's a thank you. We're right. It's two forks in the road, right? We just hit one fork, right? Didn't go the way we wanted. You got to beat Auburn, and you've got to find a semblance of an offense that you can hang your hat on, developmental wise, for the rest of the year. Come home if you can be 4-2 after Texas, and then if you can beat South Carolina, beat Maine, and then whatever will go on with the Ole Miss game. If you can have two, you've got to come out of October with at least 5 or 6 wins, because the wins in November are going to be that's going to be awfully tough.
Yeah, but I think look.
I mean, Missouri isn't as good as anybody is saying they are. So if you can keep this defense going and get some developmental offense with Hawkins, and the O-line, and all of a sudden you can be in a game. You can be where the games in October and November are competitive.
Hold on.
We even said those 9-3 was a good
Jason,
season, right?
Hold on. I gotta handle this jabroni right here. So Quentin said, "Y'all are so dejected. LOL. Great to see." What are we dejected about? We're just talking about going forward. Before you got on here, okay, I said we're gonna talk about. We're gonna lay it all out on the line, but we're also gonna focus on the solution, not the problem. But let's not do that, okay? Because at the end of the day, Texas fans love to come and talk, but y'all already know we throw records out, we throw everything out in the Red River. And your coach is what? 1-3 in his, or 1-2, 1-3, whichever one against us. So I'll just leave it at that. Y'all play somebody real quick. But anyways, back to the talk. So against Auburn, I mean, I want to say they're in a worse position than anybody right now. I mean, you can argue that they are. I mean, offensively, they don't know what they necessarily want to be. I see them coming out there trying to use a lot of quarterback run. I see them actually trying to test the secondary, but I don't think that's going to be a good ordeal. And I don't see them actually getting their run game going against us.
It could be really.
Yeah.
It could be a really ugly football game with
really ugly football game.
Both offensive coordinators trying to out-conservative each other.
Yeah.
Just praying they don't make neither quarterback makes a mistake, right? Like we're gonna. I mean, it could be like an Iowa Northwestern kind of game, like a real rock fight.
Say that.
I will say this though. I kind of feel better with Hawkins on. Especially some of the concepts that we saw last night. I feel better with Hawkins because of one thing. Hawkins will actually hand the ball off instead of just sitting there teasing the running back. Because there were some holes that opened up last night that you're like, if you actually like paid attention, especially to some of the replays, you're sitting there looking at Javonte Barnes, and Javonte Barnes is looking back like, dude, you didn't hand me the fucking ball. Now I got to block. Now I'm trying to figure out who's coming now. But all you had to do was hand me the ball, and there was lanes open.
What's the easiest thing for a offensive line that's struggling? Unblock. Shit.
Well, the one thing about the Auburn game
guys,
is
I don't know if you
we got that. I mean, the one thing about the Auburn game is, Chris, is that I've watched Auburn lose to Cal, and I watched the bulk of them losing to Arkansas. They don't really have their quarterback talent level is like bad. I mean, Hawkins, of the quarterbacks that are probably going to play in that game, Hawkins has the most big play ability of the quarterbacks that could play in that game, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he could break a run and he's gone, right? I mean, that zone read that Arnold did, Hawkins houses that. He's not tackled at the 20. So Hawkins could just rattle off a play that breaks down and goes 50 yards he has that Kyler-like ability, right? Like, well, everything's just gone to hell. I'm going to run and I'm going to go 80 yards for a touchdown. The Auburn guys aren't going to do that. And there's a good chance Lewis Carter could put one of them out of the game, if they try to run the ball. I mean, our run defense, I mean, Tennessee lives and breathes by that running game, and we shut it down, save for that touchdown at the end of the first half where Arnold had just thrown that stupid lateral and they got the ball at the 50.
Right. I feel like now Auburn, don't get me wrong, Jordan Hare is a weird place to play. It's a 2:30 kick, so it's not a night game. I think the biggest thing is that they have a pulse. I
don't want to hear that shit anymore when we've seen New Mexico State and Cal beat them in successive years.
No, that's true. That's true.
And Arkansas, it's not like
and now Arkansas, yes.
It's not like Pittman's. It's not like Pittman's not getting the ziggy in a couple of weeks.
No, I'll just say this right here. I definitely think that I think we get to win this weekend for sure. I think it'll be interesting to see Hawkins. I think that you give him some plays to help him settle in. Hopefully everything is right with Burks to kind of give him that safety valve. But I think I just feel better with Hawkins. Last night I was expecting my uncle. I expected Unc to call me and be like, man, this and that and this. And he was like, be honest with you, I'm more optimistic about the season now than I was a few games ago because during the Temple game, we sat there, we went to the Temple game together, and he looked at me and said, man, nephew, I'm not going to lie, Jackson kind of scares me. And it was because of what we've seen over these past couple of weeks. But I just feel like if you can get good quarterback play that will complement. I don't need him to go out there and be a hero and put up Kyler or Baker like numbers. I just need competent quarterback play. That way the competency translates to complementary football because that's all that you need. Last night, that's all that you needed. That's the reason why, contrary to some people's beliefs, especially
ball security, just freaking ball security.
Ball security and complementary football, you're in the game.
At halftime. It's 12-9 at half. One last thing. Do you guys really think Tennessee is like this Uber playoff team?
I think their defense is. I don't think they are offensively though.
I think they're a good team, but I
think they're probably a playoff team, but I don't know.
They got Georgia and Bama. Do you favor them in those two games?
No.
It depends on where they're playing, to be honest with you.
I think they got to go to Georgia.
They got Bama at home, Georgia on the road, I think.
Yeah.
And that could be interesting simply because you kind of want to know what DeBoer, how he's going to react to, playing at some place like that, like at Neyland Stadium, however you say it. But no, I mean, I think they're good. I think they're playoff caliber. I mean, I'll say that. But I'm sorry, people. Y'all can clown me all you want, but last night was more about OU than it was Tennessee. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They did what they needed to do to win the game, but last night was more about those offensive woes. Regardless of that, a lot of people are saying the offensive woes is what really killed you last night from even really putting the
turnovers.
Yeah, turnovers, man.
They should have won. They should have won. They could have won the game, and they even still had opportunities to be in the game late. I mean, you got to give credit to their defense. Their defensive line is as advertised. It's nasty. They did their thing, but the truth is, OU shot itself in the foot. It's bottom line. They shot themselves in the foot. Even the defensive screw ups, they were just screw ups. It's not something that can't be fixed. It's not. And to be honest with you, I think that coming into this game to kind of to piggyback off of what you just said, okay, Chris, is you didn't really know what you had coming into the game. You were wondering, what do we got? What do we got? Can we be there? And now we know that, look, it may not be, it's going to be a work in progress offensively still, but you also have a kid that can be dynamic, and it's not necessarily that you're just going to be crappy on offense. You can be pretty damn good if you do the things that and allow him to do the things that makes him successful and will make his team successful. Let him go be the athlete that he is, because he is a hell of an athlete. And we know he can throw it. We know we've got speed everywhere. Hey, let's just see what we got. At least with this, what happened last night? Yes, you lost. Okay. But at least you can say, we know who's the quarterback now. There's not a question anymore, and we're going to ride with him.
Well, I think Jason's right. If nothing else, we know who's not our quarterback for the rest of the season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to reduce this down to variables, right? We know our defense program-wise, we're on a 3-year run of elite defenses. That's the way things look right now, right? I mean, that's the way things look. You've got, with the guys they've signed and the guys they're adding for depth and the guys they could bring in this class, I think, being the recruiting guy, C.J. Nixon and Trenton Wilson up front, and the cornerbacks and the safeties they're bringing in. Need some linebackers, but, we'll get to that. You're talking about like a 3-year run of elite defense, and it may even continue beyond that, depending what you do on 26 and 27, because there are elite guys left and right looking at OU on defense. So we're on a defense. The defense is finally fixed, right? So the question is, is the offense just injured, and we're dealing with too much turnover and injuries, and we've just got a bad quarterback decision, a guy who should be X and just turned out to be Y. It's so easy to fall off offensively.
The wrong. Yeah, and I think again, I don't really think that it's necessarily a Jackson his fault or anything like that. It's just the fact of the matter is that we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole in this situation, and it wasn't going to work with all the injuries, with not as much leadership in the wide receiver core as far as injuries there too. But I mean, with all these injuries, plus he just wasn't the right marriage of quarterbacks with system. I think you're right. I think that's a lot of it.
One last comment. So at Frisco Emerson, I mean, Hawkins was like a one-man gang, right? That was not a talented high school team. He took him to the playoffs, took South
to the semifinal.
Took South Oak Cliff into like the last 2 minutes of the game. Whereas Jackson, that was a loaded Denton Geyer team. I mean, had the Bowen brothers, it was a loaded kind of roster. And
they were nasty, man. They had good running back. They had good everywhere. Yeah.
So maybe get a good wide receivers. So maybe Hawkins is better adversity shielded. He's just stronger in the adversity situation. Like, things are falling apart. Well, I'm used to that.
Well, let's put it. Let's just ask the question. But first, hey, people, look, we got 80+ people in here. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all those different things. Sooners 360, Hall of Fame football, college football podcast. Definitely check all 3 channels out. Like, subscribe, do all those different things. Patreons, all those different things. But the question is simply this, guys. Do you believe that in a week, because I don't know if we're going to get coach talk or if BV's going to come out. I feel like BV will be the first one to tell you, like, yeah.
He sounded pissed at the press conference.
Yeah, no, he did. I think BV will be the first one. I think he may let you know that Hawk is going to start. But the question to the panel and to the chat, shout out to the chat right now. It's going crazy. The question is simply this. Do you believe that with a week to prepare for Auburn, that Michael Hawkins and that Luttrell can prepare a game plan for Michael Hawkins that will, basically have us walking out of there with a W and hopefully be able to put up 20+ points?
If he can't, he don't need to be there. So what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah.
And again, it's Auburn, so again, you should be able to take the Tennessee film, take what you've seen of Hawkins in practice and spring and everything, know your liabilities at offensive line and at wide receiver, and build a functional game plan, knowing you don't have to score 49 points. You don't. You need like 21 or 17. Hell, you might just need 7.
He didn't put the ball in danger last night. I mean, you know what I mean? That I think about that drive before the half, and it was 3rd and 7 or whatever it was, and he scrambled to the outside and looked for a pass. It wasn't there. Thought about running. He was about to get crushed, so he stepped out of bounds. You know what? Fine. You punt it. There's a minute left. You get them out of the court, or less than a minute left, I think. You get out of the half. That was a smart decision. You know what I mean? You live to fight another day. Sometimes you just got to do that. But I think with his abilities, physical abilities, and the fact that he didn't look like a deer in headlights for being a true freshman. He didn't. We've heard Gabe Eichert say he was better than Caleb Williams in the spring. That's a lot. That's saying a lot. So to me, it's not dead in the water. And yes, you get him ready. It's over with Jackson Arnold, man. It's over.
Do you see this being a thing that lingers out? Does he stay?
They better not do that. That's dumb on the part of BB if it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
be decisive for God's sakes.
You lose the defensive locker room. I mean, am I the only guy that remembers Schnellenberger? Do you guys remember the Howie year? That too old for you guys? Too young for you guys? You guys too young for that? I mean, well, I don't need Kip Lewis decking Seth Luttrell at the end of the year. I mean, I think you lose the defense if you don't make the change. I mean, there was a spark on that whole team when Hawkins came out, right? People were running around, and him flipping into the end zone and just selling out and doing that. I think you've just got to Brent you can't fumble this decision. And again, I think personally, Casey Thompson is your backup. Everyone's like, well, you can't run Hawkins too much. Well, run him. You got to tell him to take care of his body, but you've got Casey Thompson. Fortunately, they brought Casey Thompson in, and that's why we brought him in.
And here he comes. Here comes this guy talking about Sooners have entered a period of darkness. My God, bro. My God. Like, I can bear the other Texas fans talking about stuff, but this is bull crap. Like, bro, y'all gotta have more than just 1 or 2 successful seasons and winning a Big 12 championship. Like, don't come in talking that stuff, man. That you sound, I'm sorry, you sound really ignorant right now. That's stupid.
Okay, you haven't played Georgia yet. Okay, so roll this back until you
I'm like, hey, there where is it? It's crazy how people talk when they feel like they're up, but there was a decade of silence that we just like, hey, now y'all are coming up.
Charlie Strong, Charlie Strong, and Tom Herman say hi.
Yeah, like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we doing here? This is crazy. But everybody has an opinion, and that's fine. So we welcome it.
I mean, you only have Quinn Ewers because Ohio State screwed up their quarterback handling.
I
mean, that's if Ohio State had promoted him, you wouldn't even have your others. You wouldn't have your starting quarterback.
I just know that even some of the craziest Texas fans ain't going that far saying that. Come on, man.
No, I mean, they only have Quinn Ewers because Ohio State screwed up their quarterback decision processing.
This is. He said, John Blake say hi. Yeah, back in the 90s, we're talking about the 2000s. Come on, man.
And John Makovic, David McWilliams, Fred Akers all say hi.
Like, what do you
how far you want to go, son?
I just think we have Sarky.
The Swits owned your Hall of Fame coach who was a Sooner. So have at it. I mean, give me a break.
I think we did just about the same thing. Amount of stuff that we did more than you guys in that decade. We played for actual chips. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I just feel like whenever you're sitting here saying this, knowing that for a decade and more, not just a decade and more, longer than a decade, you guys were mediocre. Come on, man. I'm not even gonna get on that stepping stool today. I'm gonna let y'all have that time because Wednesday, SEC Connect, 7:00 Central Standard Time. Definitely gonna go toe-to-toe with Nick and Steven, who are going to be unbearable for sure. I'm sure Steven is gonna have some pompous asshole comment that he wants to put out there, and I'm just like, okay, you're 5'10", remember that. Regardless, though, I would just say that, man, I feel like I still feel positive about this team, about the direction. We just got to get good quarterback play. That's what it boils down to.
Well,
I think that you got to. I don't necessarily know if you
the same 5 guys starting on the offensive line week over week would be a step in the right direction too.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on, I got to do got to comment on this. What Friday show are y'all talking about? What did he say Friday? Somebody put in the chat what he said Friday, because I want to know what Jason said. But regardless, though, the same offensive line. We need continuity. Who I know people were saying that I saw on Twitter people were talking about Ozada probably played the best out of everybody on the offensive line last night. I mean, kind of, did you have a particular person or somebody who you felt was more consistent?
They all struggled. I mean, they all struggled. I think Tarquin probably had the least biggest busts. They all struggled. They played a good. This was the biggest mismatch right there, D-line versus our O-line, and it showed. And I don't think anybody in the O-lines could really come out with a good grade, but you kind of knew this was where we were going to be, right? This is where we were. I mean, we did not have the 3 games we needed. to build some O-line cohesion and some teamwork. So week over week, if this O-line can continue I mean, O-line is plate tectonics. You don't get like massive leap forwards in offensive line movement, right? It's an iterative process. This is why veteran O-lines generally win games for you. This is why Texas is doing well. They have a veteran offensive line. They're starting the same guys that started last year. So they're starting, year over year. So I'd say Ozetta, they played well. The guy who's struggling, I think, the most right now, and it's just because he's moved all around. I think we're not getting anywhere near the Jake Sexton that we've seen last year playing tackle. He's not playing tackle at the same level he was last year. So that's got to change. And I think the movement around has not been helping him. Leave him at left tackle, and hopefully we can get the guy who was subbing in for Guyton last year and looked pretty damn good.
Yeah. Well. Y'all, we had a loss last night, and I'll say that. It'd be the first one. Definitely wanted to get this pod out of the way so people would know that we're not hiding. We're not going anywhere. Still got 8 games left in the season, and I still feel confident going forward for OU, and I think a lot of people should as well. I think that last night, I mean, look, 25-15, that's how the game finished, contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, the popular belief, right? In some circles, you're a couple of plays away from actually, putting not a dent into the 22-9 score, but just really stretching that game out to the point where it really was going to go down to the, who had possession last, right? And so just a bunch of piss poor execution again. And that's really what it boiled down to. I mean, the offense was just abysmal last night. And you can say in all 3 phases as far as the quarterback, maybe the play calling, and then also offensive line. But I hate it for Jackson. I really do. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he has really high upside. It just has not materialized here in Norman, right? And that's tough, especially for 5 games into him being a starter. So if the rumors are true from what you've heard in the camps and all the rest of that stuff this offseason, that Michael Hawkins is the best, and a lot of players, from what I've heard, that a lot of players on that team believe the same thing. And they were saying that, like, Michael Hawkins is just different, right? But you wanted to give Arnold the chance to go out there and clearly win the battle, clearly be the starter, and go out there and do some good things. And he has done some good things in spurts. It just has not been consistent, and that's the biggest issue right now. So Texas fans, we're not dejected. We're not upset. We got a great chance to go and get a bounce-back game, and then we go into the bye, possibly get a little bit healthier, week by week, right? And then obviously – you guys know Sark is going to have a great game plan. I feel BV is going to have a great game plan as well. And we all know in the Red River game, more times than not, you guys have came in with really, really bad circumstances and still made the game at least competitive, or you pulled the game out. So we already know rivalry games, you kind of got to throw everything out the window because it doesn't necessarily matter. So biggest thing is right now is just getting this game here. 2:30 kickoff ABC against Auburn. You get that game, you're 4-1, going into the bye, recoup, figure things out, and then boom, we're right back. Dallas people, Texas fans, OU fans, whatever, hit me up for sure, because I'll tweet at me, DM me, whatever the case may be, because I'll definitely be there for that game. So holla at your boy. But any last thoughts, Mr. Mason?
I'm fascinated to watch 60 minutes of Michael Hawkins against Auburn.
Yeah. Don't need a lot to add to it. I got you. Guys, go check out Sooners 360. I got all the information down here in the bio, so definitely go check it out. Subscribe to the Patreon. Patreon is still what's the membership fee?
$2.
$2, people. And there's no fluff, no craziness. It's just straight up, this is recruiting And as you guys already know, we come back with a whole bunch of recruiting news and stuff like that over here with this guy here who calls a lot of the stuff that you see happening, right? So speaking of that, I think you said Wednesday, right? This Wednesday or so, maybe we can do another recruiting pod. So
yeah, I mean, just lots of good kids on campus, lots of OU targets and verbals putting on some serious displays in high school. Lots of big kids to talk about.
Yeah. So definitely people come back around Wednesday. We'll talk about that. Probably try to have another guest on here as well with Mr. Mason. We can talk recruiting and also kind of preview this Auburn game as well. So people, we will get back to this, man. We will get back to this and we'll get back to the grind. But boomer sooner, man. We're still up. We're still up, people. Just got to have a little bit more faith. But with that being said, we out.
You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts. But there's only